But as we alluded to just a few moments ago, the fact that there could be some shifts in the structure of the city government in the sense that CMPD Animal Care Control could potentially no longer be under CMPD. It could be separated and basically out of the purview of the police chief as it is right now. We know that this has been a big topic of discussion amongst animal advocates here in the city of Charlotte. Not only have folks been going to city council meetings time and time again to argue for more resources and more space for the shelter, but also we've been hearing this push by advocates to try to get this separation between CMPD and Animal Care and Control. So we wanted to bring in one of those advocates with us tonight here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. We have Kelsey Joseph, who is with the Board of Friends of Charlotte-Mecklenburg Animal Services. So this is a nonprofit in our area. Y'all advocate a lot for the animals, and in particular, the shelter animals. And so we know that you've been a big proponent of this division of CMPD and Animal Care and Control. And I'm just wanting to see if you can walk us through why this push, why is this so important for y'all?
Yeah, thank you, Vanessa, so much for having me. We're excited and we're optimistic about this change. These could be huge steps in the right direction to bettering animal welfare and outcomes in Charlotte. There's a multitude of reasons why the shelter should be separated from CMPD. The two biggest ones that I often highlight are the need to make it easier to volunteer. I mean, you walk dogs at the shelter, you foster, you know how difficult and tedious that process is. So from start to finish to become a volunteer there, it takes a lot of time and energy just to walk some dogs and cuddle some kittens. And, you know, there's always space issues and overcrowding at the shelter, and we need all the help that we can get to come walk dogs and take care of animals. And these are community animals, right? So these are the animals that we all need to take care of, and we need to make that process as easy as possible for people. So eliminate unnecessary barriers, and removing the shelter from CMPD and restructuring that would be helpful. The second piece of this is that right now, you know, we need to reduce the layers between the Director of Animal Care and Control and the city manager. And so we're hoping with these changes that those layers will be reduced, ultimately decreasing bureaucracy and increasing life-saving work. And that, you know, there's all kinds of specifics on there that we're still hoping to hear about. But those are the two biggest reasons that we want the shelter separated from CMPD.
Yeah, I mean, I know you alluded to the fact that it can be a lengthy process to become a volunteer. I think a lot of folks don't realize that, yes, it is under the police department, so you technically do have to become a police department volunteer, which means you have to undergo background checks, you have to take blood tests, drug tests, I mean, you know, all of that stuff in order to get vetted through, because you're essentially going on secured police property to walk these dogs. The other thing, which I think was interesting, you pointed out, we are still waiting to hear a lot of the details of how this would go, but this was essentially, under this proposal, put Animal Care and Control under General Services. And I feel like there has been some dialogue over the fact that this would not only be a benefit for animals, but also maybe potentially for police, who no longer have to kind of juggle the animal equation, and maybe police can just focus on police.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that is an important piece of this. I think both entities serve incredibly important functions in our community, and they should do what they're best at and be able to focus on that without kind of weighing one another down.
So, you know, as far as an advocacy standpoint, I know that you have been very involved in trying to make sure that this message gets heard, and there have been lots of volunteers and lots of advocates who've been coming to these meetings to make their voice heard. How can people learn more about some of these advocacy pushes that are underway in the community for our animals?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best way to get involved with us is to reach out to Friends of CMAS, Charlotte-Mecklenburg Animal Services. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook. If you just message us, we can direct you in the right place. Also, our website, there's an info email there. So if you email back, I will personally email you back if you email that. And we've got a closed group where I provide updates and just let community members know what's going on, how to get involved, and make sure that their voices are heard. I think it's really easy to look at the budget with big numbers and talk about these big ideas, but what it comes down to at the end of the day is really just that these are staff members at the shelter that we care about, volunteers, animals, and community members, and we all just want to see better outcomes for all those individuals. And yeah, getting involved is super easy.
Now, it's hard to talk about animal care and control without, referencing the fact that there is an ongoing capacity crisis. It seems like, every couple of weeks there are emails that are going out to fosters and volunteers and, messages going on social media from the shelter to the community saying, help us, we need fosters, we need volunteers, we need people to adopt. I'm just kind of, curious what your take is at this point, getting those messages on a regular basis. I mean, I know for me, as someone who loves animals and is part of the shelter, it can be very draining. It's very difficult. And, unfortunately, not all of the animals make it out of the shelter because of capacity.
Yeah, I think you summed it up well. It can be draining. It's really sad at times. There's also really happy outcomes. So I think there is reason to get involved and to help. I think it's a really good feeling when you can get someone out of there. I would say to that, we're working on ways to increase capacity to care for animals. The shelter was built in the early 1990s when the population of Charlotte was less than half of what it is today, and we have not added a single permanent kennel space since then. And so we really need to right-size the shelter. If you look at the proposed budget, there is money in there to build an adoption center. This would not be the number of kennels that we need for a city our size, but again, it's a really good step in the right direction, and I think it can be used as a model moving forward. City council members themselves have acknowledged that it would be a step in the right direction, but that we still need more, and I think that's really promising. Yeah, I'm excited about that. I think that's still a little bit of a ways off. Like if you look at the budget, the numbers are proposed for the next 4 years to get that built and operating. And 4 years is a long time when, like you said, you're getting those emails weekly, multiple times a week. And so I think as a community, we just need to do a better job. We need to spay and neuter our pets. We need to adopt instead of buying from breeders. We need to volunteer. We need to donate. We just need to do things to support our local community and the shelter crisis that we're experiencing.
I mean, one of the special experiences that I'm so glad that I eventually took on was fostering, and I feel like that's a big thing. And I know that you're familiar with the foster process, and I think folks might not know you don't necessarily have to foster the dog or the cat through weeks. You can do the staycations. You can take it a couple weeks at a time. There are options that I've even seen. Y'all with Friends of CMAS have created new programs where people can have, I guess if you will, run support. If they're going to pull an animal and take them into foster, that you can have some support through your group to make sure that it's not all on them completely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we want to make it as easy as possible. So you can take a foster for however long you're able to. You could co-foster with someone, if you have a best friend and you're like, I can do 1 week and you can do the other week and alternate so you each get a break. That sometimes works. I think the biggest barrier that we see is people are like, I can take a dog, but I have a vacation next month. And it's like, well, that dog could be adopted by next month. And if not, there are funds through Friends of CMAS, and we will pay to have your dog boarded at a boarding facility that partners with us, so that you can still enjoy your vacation and not have to worry about that baby that you took home.
Yeah. As it stands right now, with all of the discussion that we've been seeing kind of bubbling up around animal care and control, how to change things. We talked about expansion. We talked about the proposal to separate from the police department. How are you feeling as far as animal support here in Charlotte? Are there any other things that you feel like are still yet to do, or we still need to have discussions about while we're talking about animal welfare?
Oh gosh, where to start? And I think that's the biggest point of this all, right, is that we had to start somewhere, and we have to be strategic about what is going to have the biggest impact in the shortest amount of time. And when we looked at our animal services, we said it's not working as well as it could under CMPD, so separating that would be important. And we need to right-size our shelter, so that adoption center is a great step in the right direction. I think we're going to need more of those in different parts of town. Looking ahead to other issues, I think there's so many, and I know you report on a lot of them, but I think spay, neuter, preventative options so that we're not having the influx of animals that we're seeing is important. I think, there's got to be some regulation around breeding. There are just so many unwanted litters in our city. I know personally for me, outside dogs make me extremely sad. Chained dogs, I know right now that's not an issue that animal care and control can take on in a bigger way. I think they try to offer resources to people who have outdoor dogs to make those dogs more comfortable and to suffer less than they do. But those are all issues that I'm personally interested in. And, right now I'm really focused on kind of helping to restructure animal care and control, but in the future I could definitely see myself working on issues like that.
What would be your message to folks in the community who are either seeing these headlines about the shelter, or maybe they're just kind of curious about what is it like, as far as animal welfare in Charlotte or North Carolina or the nation? Where do you think people can go to learn more, or learn more about advocacy pushes or any of that information?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So we certainly have a crisis here in Charlotte. Right now we're seeing a nationwide shelter crisis and overpopulation of animals. That's tied to so many intersectional issues: loss of affordable housing, increases in cost of goods, people not being able to afford not only vet care, but health care and, care for their families. And so all of these things are very intricately connected. So this is a nationwide problem. I certainly do not have all of the answers. There are groups that are working on it. So if people check out Best Friends Animal Society, tons of resources on their site, tons of ways to get involved. I would say if you want to get involved locally, there are 5 states in the U.S. that rank the lowest for animal welfare, and North Carolina is sadly one of them. So getting involved here is really impactful. You'll help not only animals, but your local community members, your neighbors. And ways to get involved locally, volunteer at the shelter, sign up to come walk a dog. Even if it's just for a daycation, take that dog out, take them on a hike, take them to your favorite brewery if they're social. Make them a profile so that people looking to adopt a dog can see how wonderful they are, update their photos. You can also volunteer other places in Charlotte, but I would say just if you're even remotely curious, just get involved. Come walk the kennels one day, talk to a volunteer, and just see how you might be able to help.
Yeah, I think you said it well in that, there can be some sadness with some of the discussions we have around the shelter, specifically when it comes to capacity and other issues, but there are really so many wonderful, happy stories, and I know I can think of, a bunch of them off the top of my head of animals that have moved on and have their own Instagram profiles and are living the life. And, I remember one dog, I think we're probably thinking the same one, Gertie,
Yes.
who at one point I remember, as a brand new volunteer meeting her and not really sure if she was going to make it out, and she did, and she's living an awesome life thanks to awesome humans. So it's always good to hear.
Yeah, I just saw on her Instagram today that she was snuggling with her new baby brother.
Oh,
Her human brother.
wonderful. Well, she deserves the very best in that growing family, and I know baby brother will love her too.
Yeah.
All right, Kelsey Joseph, anything else you want to add before we say goodbye?
Just thank you so much for having me tonight.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. And of course, folks, we'll keep you posted on these budget discussions. As we've pointed out, this is just a proposal. There's going to be a public hearing on May 12th that will be followed by budget adjustments that are set for May 19th, straw votes on May 29th, and then council is set to consider the budget adoption on June 9th, of course, fiscal year starting July 1st. So a little bit of time here, and of course, feel free to check out the very latest with the budget. We'll have that on our website shortly. And our Julie Kay is reporting on this tonight. So keep it here on WCNC Plus coming up on the news at 11. We'll have the very latest for you there as far as an overview of the budget proposal that was outlined today.